What's up, everybody? Welcome back to the channel. This is Legitical Response. I cover political news, folks. Keep you up to date and informed with everything that's going on with the government. Now, as we know, Joe Biden thankfully dropped out of the presidential race, and Kamala Harris stepped in and said, I'll take it. I'll go ahead and do the damn job. Okay, so I saw this headline earlier where it was basically Gretchen Whitmer was scoffing at the idea that get this, political elites just anointing Kamala Harris as the Democratic nominee as being anti-democratic. Scoffed at that, right? Like the voters had no say whatsoever in that process, right? Just like the VP picks. Like I covered yesterday, was talking about that Kamala Harris wasn't a DEI hire because the voters voted for Kamala Harris. No, they didn't. As a matter of fact, the corporate press was outright lying, saying that because the voters didn't vote. Joe Biden picked the VP pick. The voters voted for Joe Biden. They didn't vote for Kamala Harris. As we pointed out yesterday, she couldn't even pick up a single delegate. She was in that race for 2020 as well. She couldn't pick up a single delegate. Her approval ratings are in the tank. Her favorability ratings are even worse than Joe Biden's were. So all this buzz around Kamala Harris is like, I don't know if I'm thinking it's fake. Right, I'm starting to see polls come out and say, "Oh, Trump better worry." Yeah, Kamala Harris isn't the ticket, man. She is not the GOAT. But let's get into this story because, oh man, this is bad. Harris will carry Biden's economic record into the election. She hopes to turn it into an asset. Good luck with that because as of right now, most Americans are looking at the economy because we just went through an insane inflationary period. Contrary to what the corporate press tells you, wages haven't came up to meet that inflationary growth. I'm sorry. I haven't had a raise in a good long time. Not, outside of an inflationary raise, right? Like I got a few cents here and there. Nothing, around 9%. Nothing like that. So, most Americans are still struggling to buy stuff. So, go ahead. Try to take the Bidenomics and turn it into Harrisnomics or something, or whatever the hell you want to do. And try to make that work for you because it's going to be a losing strategy. We can listen to the corporate press all day talk about how the hell, the economy's good. Look at the stock market, y'all. Most people don't care about the stock market. They care about the price of eggs, the price of toilet paper, the price of gas. And we know that under Donald Trump, all of those things were pretty cheap. We were making money hand over fist. Nobody was really struggling, except for, people at the bottom that are always struggling, but they're struggling even harder now. They were struggling less under Donald Trump. That is a basic fact that you can quote all the damn economic numbers you want. You can say, unemployment's low and we've created all these jobs and blah, 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 blah. And it doesn't really matter to the average everyday person, right? Because they don't care about that. They care about the prices of groceries, their utility costs, housing costs, things like that. And trying to run on those issues right now for Kamala Harris, that's not a good thing. So I would love to see how the hell she's going to turn this into an asset. But let's get into it because I can't wait to see. And no, once again, I haven't read this story. I read the first paragraph. That was about it. So you're getting it fresh just like I'm getting it. I'm reacting to it just as you will be. So check this out. A key question is looming for Vice President Kamala Harris as she edges closer to gaining the Democratic presidential nomination. Can she turn the Biden-Harris economic record into a political advantage in a way that President Joe Biden failed to do? You know what? There was nothing that Joe Biden could do to make Bidenomics actually look good because Bidenomics is utter failure. That's all it is. It's garbage policy added together with incompetency. Yeah, you get poor numbers regardless. In some ways, her task would seem straightforward. The administration oversaw a vigorous rebound from the pandemic recession, one that shrank the U.S. unemployment rate to a half-century low of 3.4% in early 2023, far below the painful 6.4% rate when Biden and Harris took office in 2021. The rate stayed below 4% for more than 2 years, the longest such stretch since the 1960s. You know, that's something. They love to use the unemployment rate as some sort of marker for a good economy. I don't really see it that way. Like I keep saying, you know, somebody down in the comments, please let me know how the unemployment rate is a marker of a good economy. I don't really see it that way. I see the unemployment rate as the marker of, yeah, people need jobs. That's what that is to me. Sure, the market is supporting those jobs. I understand that, right? That when we're in a recession or a depression or something like that, jobs go away, so unemployment's going to go up. However, if the economy is stagnant, the jobs are going to be the same because everything is stagnating. That's how I look at it. Like, it's not a marker of a good or bad economy. It's just a marker. That's all that is to me, at least. Boosted by the administration's $1.9 trillion stimulus package, robust economic growth sent demand for workers soaring, forcing employers to jack up wages. But they didn't jack up wages, did they? Paychecks rose particularly fast for lower-paid workers, thereby narrowing income inequality. Show me the statistics for that, because I would love to see it, because I would be considered a low-income worker, because I only make about $40,000 a year. Just a little bit less than 40. I make like 39 something, right? And I haven't had a raise in 3 years. Soon, though, clogged supply chains caused part shortages as demand for furniture, cars, and other goods juiced by the administration's stimulus soared. Russia's invasion of Ukraine. Oh, here we go. The Putin price hike, y'all. Escalated gas and food prices in June 2022. Inflation reached a 4-decade high. That is right. The Biden administration saw the inflation coming, said, hey, hang on, it's going to be fine, y'all. It's just going to be transitory. It's like, well, of course, inflation can't stay at 9%, right? If the economy's still moving along. But what did they do to stop the inflation from coming way up? Absolutely nothing. We saw that video I played. If you haven't seen it, go back and check out my video archive. But I showed one of Joe Biden's economic advisors was asked, well, why do we print money? And he had no answer for it, right? This dude was fumbling and stumbling his way through that answer, and he eventually just said, after stumbling a lot, said, I have no idea why we print money. It was just an insane video. The spike in prices was so severe that it offset most of the wage growth that workers had enjoyed, and it soured Americans on the economy. Consumer sentiment plunged in late 2021 and has barely recovered, even as inflation has plummeted from 9.1% in 2022 to 3%. Yeah, that's right. So basically they're saying that the Trump administration was the cause for the wage increases, which they were, as a matter of fact. Because a lot of stuff that the administrations do don't take effect until a little bit down the road, right? So the wage growth went up, and then we had COVID, right? That screwed everything up. I mean, just totally tanked the economy. But then the Biden administration, speaking of that, is trying to use COVID numbers while saying, oh, we got more jobs. They're using the people coming back from COVID as job numbers. Yeah, they're adding those into the job numbers. It's outright insane. And he's trying to say, you know, Joe Biden was trying to lie about the inflation, saying it was at 9% when he took office. No, as a matter of fact, it was at a historic low of 1.4%, which if you go back and look at the records, it stayed really low under Donald Trump the entire time, just about. As a matter of fact, it went down a little bit. It got all the way down to 0.9%. For like, I don't know, a 10 month period, something like that. It dipped way down and then slowly started working its way back up right toward the end, around COVID, of Trump's administration. These people are insane, y'all. Trying to use the economic numbers as a bludgeon against Trump. It's nuts. A wide gap has opened up between the public's dim view of the economy and the generally positive data on jobs, falling inflation, and economic growth. Chris Jackson, heading of polling at IPOS Public Affairs, said he blames the cumulative jump in average prices over the last 3 years, roughly 20%, only partly offset by higher paychecks and a general unease about the country's direction. Yeah, it's a factor of all kinds of stuff, but they keep saying wage growth, wage growth, wage growth, wage growth. Well, I haven't seen that, folks. I mean, I know that's anecdotal. That's just me. But once again, I work in construction, y'all. So, you know, our wages should grow with everything else. But as a matter of fact, they haven't. And speaking of that, I'm going to go talk to my boss Monday about getting me a freaking raise, because now that I think about it, it has been a while since I've had a raise. As a matter of fact, here's looking at you, boss. People are, generally speaking, doing okay, Jackson said. No, they're not. They're not doing okay. Barely scraping by. If that's what you want to call okay, then okay, I agree with you. But barely scraping by to me is not okay. That is, you're one broken alternator away from disaster, essentially. You're one washing machine breaking away from a disaster. Anything breaks, any out of pocket costs you have to, emergency situations come up that you have to pay for out of pocket, you're screwed. Now your bills are going to be behind. Now you might not be able to eat lunch for a few days this week. Yeah, that's not doing okay. That's barely afloat. I wouldn't call that okay. I would call a couple $100 in the bank okay. They have their jobs, they're getting paid, they've seen pay raises. No, we haven't. All those sorts of things. And yet they don't feel like their dollars go as far, because they don't. They feel like the country is not going in a good direction, just in general. Yeah, because we got an insane president producing insane policy. Right? The open borders, the wars all over the freaking place, right? Just the outright insanity of the Biden administration is ridiculous, y'all. Former President Donald Trump is campaigning hard on the higher cost of living, having mentioned inflation 14 times in his speech last week at the Republican National Convention. His running mate, Senator J.D. Vance of Ohio, has attacked Biden over the surge in housing costs, which has diminished the hopes of many would-be home buyers. That is right. Gen Z is outright screwed. Speaking this week in Indianapolis, Harris highlighted her support for affordable health care and affordable child care. She also charged that Trump would eliminate the Biden administration's price cap on insulin, which the White House often cites as an example of its efforts to reduce high drug costs. Now, let me ask you one thing, just as a matter of combating lies coming from the Harris campaign. What sense would it make for Trump to go to the pharmaceutical companies, because that's what the insinuation is, that Trump would go to the pharmaceutical companies and tell them to raise their cap on insulin costs? What good would that do for anybody? Right? It would only damage Trump as a president. It wouldn't make any sense. And as a matter of fact, in case people forget, Donald Trump is one of the reasons behind insulin being low. He was trying like hell to get insulin prices lowered. As a matter of fact, he did get insulin prices lowered. Even though inflation, the rate of price increases, has sharply slowed over the past 2 years, Americans remain unhappy that average prices are much higher than they were just a few years ago. Grocery prices are up 21% since Biden and Harris took office. Average apartment rents have climbed about 23% to $1,400 a month, according to an apartment list. You know what my first apartment cost me? Yeah, my very first apartment that I had back in, what was it? 2000, I believe. The year 2000. $400 a month. And to fight inflation, the Federal Reserve, led by Chair Jerome Powell, raised its key interest rate at the fastest pace in 4 decades. Borrowing costs soared as a result. The the average 30-year fixed mortgage rate has more than doubled from a low of about 2.7% during the pandemic to about 6.8% last week. I wonder why they didn't say the fixed 30-year mortgage rate what it was under Donald Trump. Yeah, because it was really good. As a matter of fact, the current house I'm living in, I bought in 2017 under Donald Trump, and I got it at a 1% 30-year fixed rate. That is right, 1%. And it is currently 6.8% of last week. That's insane. That is outright insane. The combined increase in prices and inflation has been particularly jarring for many families because it followed nearly a decade of little to no inflation and ultra-low interest rates. America's households grew used to prices barely rising. From 2015 until the pandemic, for example, U.S. food prices were basically flat. When high inflation eventually did strike, it both bruised Americans' finances and darkened their economic outlook. Still, many leading policymakers see the Fed's sharp boost in interest rates and the subsequent fall in inflation as an economic success story. What? Yeah, that's another thing. They constantly touting, oh, inflation came down. It's at 3%. Well, what was it under Trump? Yeah, I said that earlier. I know. It was 1.4% on average. But they're trying to tout 3%. Do you realize, though, that that is double what it was under Donald Trump? That is right. So I don't understand why they're trying to tout 3% inflation rate as a good thing. Like, because it's not 9.1%? Is that why you're trying to tout that? Yeah, they're insane, y'all. When the Fed began aggressively raising rates, making consumer and business loans much costlier, the widespread fear was that the United States would soon tumble into a recession. In August 2022, Powell issued a high-profile warning that the Fed's inflation fight would bring some pain to households and businesses. Instead, inflation has fallen without a sharp rise in unemployment, which is at a still low 4.1%, and Fed officials have indicated that they're increasingly confident that inflation is declining steadily toward their 2% target. Christopher Waller, an influential member of the Fed's governing board, celebrated that progress in remarks last week. Yet mainly, everyday Americans aren't sharing in the enthusiasm as they grapple with still high costs. New car prices, for example, jumped 24% in the 3 years after the pandemic to an average of $48,000 freaking dollars. They have largely leveled off in the past year, according to the government data. But on Thursday, General Motors said that customers paid an average of nearly $50,000 for one of its new cars in the April to June quarter. Perhaps most painfully, housing affordability has worsened. Both prices and mortgage rates are much higher than they were 3 years ago. The monthly payment for a newly purchased median-priced home has jumped nearly 1/3 in that time to more than $3,000, according to Harvard's Joint Center for Housing Studies. Would-be homebuyers need to earn at least $100,000 to afford the median-priced home in nearly half of all metro areas, this center has found. That is insane, y'all. There are groceries. A pound of ground beef has jumped $1.05 since Biden's inauguration to a national average of $5.36 a pound, according to the government data, though egg prices are far from below the peak they reached during a bout of avian flu in late 2022. A $2.72 a dozen, they're still 85% more expensive than they were 3 years ago. A pound of chicken has surged 25% to $2.01 since January 2021. Economists at the Biden administration have calculated, though, that the average wages have risen enough to make up for the higher costs. Yeah, tell that to all the people that haven't had a raise, that the wages haven't come up 25 freaking percent. I mean, are you getting paid 25% more? No. I'm sorry. The Biden administration is insane for this. They're just outright insane. That, to be honest with you, keep doing what you're doing. Go ahead and tout Bidenomics because you're going to ensure that Donald Trump wins. Because you keep doing that. People are looking at their pocketbooks like, what? What are they talking about? The economy's doing good. I'm struggling. What's going on here? Yeah. They're just insane. They keep telling you, right, that, hey, you're getting paid more. Your wages increased 9% one year. No, they didn't. But keep telling yourself that, Biden. As of June, average hourly pay was 23% higher than it was 4 years earlier, larger than the 21% jump in average prices. As a result, the White House economists calculated it now takes about 3.6 hours of work for a typical employee to buy a week's worth of groceries, about the same as it did before the pandemic. That is an outright lie. That's an outright lie. 3.6 hours of work. Let's just say at $20 an hour. That's what? $70. Rough estimate. That's $70. Do you really think you can get a week's worth of groceries for $70? No, you can't. And I'm sorry. My wages haven't risen 23%. I'm sorry. Let me know down in the comments if yours has. But I think these people are they're outright lying. They have to be. I don't see wages raising nearly as much as all the prices have, right? Like, they're talking about all these percentages and all this stuff. Where are they getting the wages number? I would really love to see that, because is it just me? Am I the only one that's been left out and hasn't had a raise? I mean, come on. Get your head out of your freaking ass. The economy might be doing okay, but most people aren't. Prices jumped way up, and we're just not used to paying that much. I'm sorry. That's just how it is. Most people that I talk to, at least, are struggling to get by. Even people that weren't struggling before, right? They're struggling to get by. So go ahead, Harris. Keep on touting Bidenomics. Bidenomics is working, y'all. Bidenomics is great. Keep touting that. You're going to be sorry you did come November. And that's all I got to say about that. I've been ranting on for a while now. So, y'all let me know what y'all think about all this down in the comment section. Are y'all struggling just like I am? Because it's insane, and it's honestly breaking me. I don't know, how long I can stay like this without something around my house freaking breaking and, me having to go into debt to fix it, essentially. But y'all let me know what y'all think about all this down in the comment section. That's all I got for this one. I want to thank everybody for watching, and y'all try to have a good day. And stay afloat, please. Peace.